It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, a Land Rover news roundup, a quick recap of our UK trip, and then a hard-hitting interview with Ben Smith and Dixon Kenner from this year's ANARC. And now, without further delay, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Barris, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at thebarriscollection.com or follow us on Instagram at thebarriscollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the spire nut to Steven's tiny plastic fastener. I'm the fiddly clip of podcasting, Ike Goss. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. I'm live from London as we are preparing to finally return to the United States. I hear it's safe now, so we can come back. Those
You've
folks that
been
were looking
misled.
For us have... Oh, no. But yeah, we've been over here for the last couple weeks and in Canada the week before that. And you're now headed to Canada as we've made a deal that we can never be in the same country at the same time.
It's true. It's a court order, actually.
Yeah, the court order. Like having to be a certain distance from a school. We can't be in the same country at the same time.
It's not at all like that. No.
Oh, okay. All right. So in the news this week, our good friend, Adrian Mardell is now officially the CEO of JLR, formerly known as Jaguar Land Rover, formerly known as Rover Company.
He must have drawn the short straw.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was like, everybody who doesn't want to be CEO, get out of the room. And he couldn't find an exit. No, he's a nice guy. We spent some time together, and he was our former chief financial officer. So hopefully we'll be getting the books in order and all that sort of business. Nice. We had an opportunity to chat with the gentleman who was in charge of their procurement last weekend. And
that's got to be a stressful position.
That's a rough job. The gentleman in charge of finding all those chips, but he was a great guy and said that's all mostly under control now. So that's good. So
it's all mostly under control.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah. Where did you chat with these gentlemen?
We went to the Wimbledon tennis final with some folks from Jaguar. And
nice.
I had a great time. Yeah, I'm not a big tennis person necessarily, but
this didn't convert you?
Final. I would watch tennis, sure. I don't know that I'll seek out tennis necessarily, but I definitely will watch tennis, I guess, if the opportunity presents itself again.
Tennis has found you. You're the reluctant hero that tennis needs.
That's exactly right. I'm like Kurt Russell at the beginning of every Kurt Russell movie. That's fine. Yeah, that's all right. I'm willing to be there for it.
You're driving the Pork Chop Express of tennis.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was good. Liza had a great time. It was really neat. They have strawberries, which is a big thing there. So we ate some strawberries and we watched some tennis.
Did you tell them in the first world that strawberries are no big deal?
It's like not a big deal. Yeah, we're like, oh, you have strawberries. That's
strawberry season back home.
That's great. That's fine. Okay, good.
Yeah, you can't take 2 steps without stepping on a strawberry plant here.
A strawberry plant, yeah,
in Oregon.
Or someone eating strawberries or whatever. Yeah, no, it was great. It was really fun. And Wimbledon is a cool stadium, and tennis is it's a fun sport. Thankfully, Leonard and Liza were there to explain how it's scored and why people are doing all the seemingly odd things that they're doing. And it was great. I enjoyed it.
It's a lot of pomp and circumstance. Very regimented sport. A lot of rules. Mm-hmm. Has that air of something ancient, an Olympic event or something.
Yeah.
But
well,
it's interesting. I can just picture like people back in the Middle Ages just volleying back and forth.
Awesome. Oh yeah, man.
The heads of their enemies or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I imagine it feels like one of those games that was maybe played with heads at one point. Could have been. Yeah, it's true. That was every game. Yeah, at some point or another. Yeah. And speaking of heads being used as sporting implements, the SVR Defender spied again. The SVR Defender spied again. So coming up probably pretty soon now, as it looks like it's in sort of its final camo and all that sort of stuff. Rumored to be a 600 horsepower V8 motor in that.
Is that enough?
In that bad boy. I don't know. I will have to find out. I don't know.
Yeah.
That is a significant motor, and it's probably the last V8 motor that they will put into a production car. Remember when they said they were going to stop making Land Rover Defenders? the classic one, and now they make like new ones every couple of weeks. I imagine it'll be the same thing. This is the last one that's going to get a V8 motor, except for all the ones they're going to make with V8 motors after this one.
It's the 1978 Cadillac Eldorado convertible. It's the last one.
It's the last one.
Except for next year.
Until they make another one. Yeah, exactly.
Except for next year. But I think the exciting thing about this new release is it appears to have a different front end treatment because they're heavily camouflaging the front end. So expect some changes to the new Classic Defender. Is that what they're going to call it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to call it, but
not really sure.
Looks cool. It's going to be great. And it's neat that SVR is doing I guess, are they bringing the car from Slovakia where it's made and then they're doing stuff to it here in the UK and then they're shipping it out? Or
that's what the badging would imply, right?
Yeah, that it has to be at SVO, which is interesting because I know last time we were there, they were saying like, oh yeah, we'd like to get into the Defender, but because it's made in Slovakia, we're still figuring that out. And so maybe that means they figured it out and they're going to go all kinds of special edition new Defenders.
I think one of the challenges logistically was painting them because the bodies are assembled in Slovakia. So in order to paint them the special SVO colors, you would have to like ship it and then paint it and then ship it back to the assembly line or some such. Right? So I'm not really sure how they're solving that issue.
Right, because the paint is like the biggest thing there. You can get like 9,000 different colors, or if you happen to have a spoon left over from a camping set from the 30s, they'll color match it or whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Your family crest, whatever, diamond encrusted lug nuts, whatever you want, they'll do it. And it's pretty impressive. They have some very talented interior folks and other things. And you get to sit on a 1-to-1 scale model of the Starship Enterprise and select all of your finishes on your car. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's true. You feel very Jean-Luc Picard in there, picking out all your different leathers. Yes, indeed. Indeed. And finally, we've talked about this before, but our good friends at Tata have decided that they will...
Love your pronunciation of Tata.
They will be planting their battery factory here in the UK after essentially holding a gun to the head of the UK government until they acquiesced on, who knows, some kind of obviously big incentives to make that happen. But it's happening. It's happening here.
Yeah, that was in the news a few months ago. Tata was suggesting gently to the UK government that they help them construct a gigafactory for the production of batteries in the UK. And otherwise, they were going to go to Spain or Slovakia, I think, and put their factory there. And maybe that was smart for them, I think. So we heard you want tech jobs. If you don't do this, it's going to look really bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, keen negotiators, those Tata folks. It is you don't end up with a car like the Mahindra by accident. Let's just put it that way.
Very on purpose.
Yeah. That'll be fun. And again, back to the SVR Defender, it's probably the last V8 because they're not really putting any innovation into the gasoline motors, diesel motors anymore. They're moving everything, shifting all their focus technically over to EVs, and that's good. Now the batteries will be made right next door. I mean, do you want batteries being made here? Is that a really toxic manufacturing process? I don't know what goes into making batteries.
Oh no, batteries anymore? No, they're completely safe.
They're fine.
No,
okay, great.
I don't think they cause fires or no.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm sure it's fine. It's gonna be great.
No, it's gonna be fine.
Nobody liked Somerset, anyways. All right,
it's a throwaway town. Being honest,
it's gonna be like New York in that Escape from New York movie. They're just going to build a wall around it.
The broken Statue of Liberty will be in the background somehow.
Yeah. And again, coming full circle, then we got to send Kurt Russell in to get those batteries out. It's going to be great.
Good point.
Get him ready.
Kurt Russell.
Warm him up.
That guy's great.
Speaking of the UK, we've been here now, like I said, for 2 weeks. And oh my God, have we had a Land Rover celebrity, dare I say, tour de force. It has been, oh my goodness. We have interviews that we've done. We've shot a YouTube series that will be coming out at some point as soon as I get around to editing it. It's amazing. And this all brought to you by our 2.4 TD4 TDCI Defender that we had here, courtesy of our good friend Vlado. Yeah.
This is your first time seeing this vehicle, right?
It is. It's the first time in person since we bought it about a year ago. It's been with Vlado. He has been using it exclusively to jump over canals there in Slovakia. And
I saw a picture of it in the background of one of his Instagram stories where he was using it as a food truck.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. I believe he was selling Donairs out of it for the last few months. Or Horka, which is a like Hungarian Slovakian rice sausage. It's delightful. And anyways, he's been using it as a food truck, and that's fine, no problem. And now we've got it stored at a top secret location here in the UK until it returns to Vlado, or I don't know, we find some other adventure to take it on before bringing it back to the United States. So we shot some video around that car. We went and saw Duncan Barber just outside of Edinburgh, which is pretty cool. He is a Camel Trophy legend, of course, cinema chase car expert and
cinematographic legend,
and all around wonderful guy. He also runs a rescue boat. He's a volunteer for a local rescue boat shed there. We went and saw that, and the old Ford tractor that pushes the thing into the sea and brings it back. Very cool. Really neat stuff. Of course, we went and saw Nick Dimbleby. What is a trip to the UK without seeing the Dimbleby? Yeah, so we went and enjoyed the Dimblebys. That was wonderful. Went down and saw Mike Bishop and took car number 16 out off-roading a little bit through some green lanes and things around his house, which was fantastic. Saw Nick Rogers, former head of engineering at Land Rover, and all of his collection of, he is. We saw all the Nicks, all the Land Rover Nicks. We got the whole...
It's hard to do.
In our Land Rover Nick bingo, we got both. So it was great. And also Phil Bashel to see the new Dunsfold. Oh my God. We've shot a little YouTube episode in there, and it is incredible. Not even 2 years ago, we were in that building, and there were just boxes of 900 letter R's from the front of a Range Rover. And now it's a full-fledged museum.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah, it really is incredible. And then ended up with our very good friend Bob Ives and did some actual off-roading in a real camel truck with a gentleman who won the Camel Trophy, which is a pretty rare experience. And then I did some farming with Dan. We went and rode on the combine with Dan.
He's the best.
It was awesome. We did some great combining, and I don't think they're necessarily ready to hire me as a farmhand just yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on my farming resume. I think next season. An
internship maybe is the next logical step.
And then John-Luc Masters, our good friend, brought down his Camel Trophy Discovery, the same 93 Camel Trophy as mine, a sort of sister to my Camel, and gave us a taxi service to the train station into London. Jean-Luc's Camel Trophy taxi service is, if you need to get from Bob Ives' house to a train station, that's an available option in Uber. You just open up the app and you just look for the Camel Trophy truck driving around South England, and you just click on that. And there you go. So it's a great service. And and we're going to have all that, of course, all that content.
It's a lot of stuff. So many living rooms.
Yeah, so many living rooms. It was a tour de force. Land Rover celebrity tour de force.
Incredible. I am very jealous. That sounds like a wonderful trip. Did you get any work done?
No work has been done at all. Yeah, no, not at all. Speaking of Land Rover celebrity tour de force, we were lucky enough to sit down with none other than Ben Smith and the one and only Dixon Kenner at this year's ANARC festival a month or so ago.
Used to be a lot of Dixons. Did you know that?
Is that true?
Yeah, he's the final character in the Dixon Highlander saga.
I was just going to say, has he gone and eliminated all the other Dixons and gained their power? Yeah.
Yes, he has.
One at a time.
He's the ultimate Dixon.
He's the ultimate Dixon. Yeah, he is the peak Dixon. That's
peak
it.
Dixon.
It doesn't get any better than that. I would say that's fair. I agree. I think he is peak Dixon, actually. Yeah, I think that's true. So let's get those guys on here and go through that chat.
It's going to be great. Let's go.
All right. Well, we are here again, live from the beautiful ANARC Diamond Jubilee. Looking a little bit nicer, actually, this afternoon than it was yesterday. It was a little soupy yesterday, but made the RTV really fun.
A little British?
Sliding. Yeah, it's a lot more British. Yeah. It felt, with diesel Defenders driving by and like partially rainy skies, it really felt like I could be in the Midlands. It was really nice. But we're joined by our exceptionally good friends, Mr. Ben Smith and Mr. Dixon Kenner, finally together in one place on the show. I think if something were to happen to this tent right now, vintage Land Rover ownership would just get wiped off the planet. It would be a major set. I didn't actually know you guys were allowed to appear together, like like an Air Force One, Air Force Two kind of thing. But here you are. Thanks for taking the time out this morning to sit down with us and talk about all things vintage Land Rover ownership, club ownership, obviously the Ottawa Valley newsletter, all of this body of work, if you will, that you folks are involved in, tracking every serial number and every other thing. It is really pretty remarkable, and I don't think that there's anyone with a vintage Land Rover that has been on the internet, on a board, on a Facebook, on a listserv that hasn't heard at least one or both of your names more than a couple of times. So welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate the time, and let's get into it. So I'm always interested, something we try to ask people. We know we've had to chat with Dixon in the past a little bit, but a little bit of your sort of Land Rover origin story, Ben. When did you decide that you were going to devote your life to? And then we'll talk about vintage airplane crewing. But where did you get struck with the Land Rover fever, such as it is, or contract the deadly Land Rover virus, whatever it is you want to call it?
Well, it came in stages. It didn't happen overnight. But I mean, yes, as a kid, I saw Gods Would Be Crazy and thought it was a cool movie.
Yeah.
But when I was a freshman at college, one of my father's friends from work had an old Series 2, Series 3 in his driveway. And he said, Carl, this would be a perfect car for your son. And even badgering Dad. Now, this is in a hoity-toity part of New Jersey in Harding Township, where it had been in his driveway for 3 years dead next to his wife's brand new Porsche 911. She said, get that thing out of my driveway. And so Dad finally says, fine, Marty, I will go and look at this thing. And comes home, and by the time he got home, a tow truck appeared with it towed in. So Dad wrote a check for like $1,000 or something.
Right.
I'm off in California, and I have no idea what this is. I find a book showing I think it's a British military guide of military equipment, like looking at lightweights and things like that, not knowing what this thing is.
Yes.
Come home to find a car that the wiring harness had burned out. The guy had tried to put it in, got it half installed, half wrong, and gave up. Okay, Haynes manual, wiring diagram, let's hook this thing together, and got it running. Went to Atlantic British Rally, that was fun. That engine had rod knocks. The next summer, when I came back from school, we threw a short block in, and then decided to take that car to college. Now, I'm in Pasadena. I'm living in New Jersey, so put the engine in. The 500-mile oil change on a brand new engine I did in a park in a rest area in Ohio. I kept driving to California.
Right.
And that was my only car for a couple, from 92 to 97. It's the only car I had. I drove across the country a couple times, went off-roading in the Salton Sea, in the desert, ski trips in Colorado or Utah, just get in the car and go. I just kind of went to Rovers North rallies, and they still existed, and just kind of fell into it. And part of the passion came, I guess, when a friend who owned a Volvo said, hey, there's this new Land Rover email list called LRO. You should join this. And I joined this list of like 50 people Bill Colucci had circa 1992 or something. And this character's on it. Dixon here. And so a lot of my closest friends came from that list, and many of them are here today at this event. And so it just kind of snowballed into, let's do some off-roading, let's do more off-roading, let's just go from there. I probably should ask other questions before I start talking for half an hour.
It's beautiful. And Dixon, what about you? What is the I would say, preeminent Canadian Land Rover personality, experts, all-around great guy. You're doing a lot as a fellow Canadian to represent Land Rover's proud history as part of the Commonwealth, such as it is. We ended up with a lot of Land Rovers, certainly out in Ontario and in British Columbia. We ended up with all these great Land Rovers. So what is it that one day struck you to say, this is something I'm going to commit a significant amount of my energy and purpose to?
Well, at the time I was into Austin Minis, and I was over at a friend's place, and we were discussing Land Rovers. We'd seen Gods Must Be Crazy and all the rest of that stuff. And the friend we were at didn't know what a Land Rover was, so we described it to him. And he said, oh, there's one in the garage, neighbor's garage across the way. So we walked over there, and there it was, and I overpaid, I guess. I paid $1,500 as opposed to Ben's $1,000 for our 64 109 station wagon.
Nice. Took
it apart, rebuilt it. And that was back in a day when you knew there was other Land Rovers around. You didn't know where they were. You knew there was a club, and you couldn't find them because the only way to advertise was in the newspaper or something, and clubs weren't going to do that. And it wasn't until another club member put a card on my windscreen saying, "Oh, here's the club. Here's how to go." And OVLR has had a monthly social running since the 1980s. And showed up to that, and
hasn't left,
and it's still there. That's right. Right.
And then by '93, I was editing the newsletter. On my first round.
And it is a beautiful newsletter. Both Ike and I, get it every month. And
I think it's a special thing. The newsletter is a forgotten art in this day and age. They say print is dead, but it's really special to see somebody take the time to compile, what's going on in the Rover community. And I think that's really one thing that separates the Ottawa Valley Club in general from a lot of clubs is like somebody takes the time to make a newsletter. And and it's always interesting and it's always fun, and you really do cover a good range of topics, everything from Land Rover philately to, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's stamp collecting.
Yep.
And for everything from that to new cars, cars for sale, projects people are working on. There's a Russian, I think he's a Russian guy, or he's in the Baltics or something, that's building a crazy detailed brass scale Land Rover, and you're
1/10 scale Land Rover. He's a dentist, a retired dentist in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Yeah, and not Georgia the state, but Georgia the
country. Yeah.
And he's never seen a Land Rover.
And he's always asking for intricate dimensions so he can make everything just so. And just following all these people that have a real passion for Land Rovers. And Land Rovers is just kind of the nexus, and you can really see everybody has like Ben has airplane crewing and local politics and all this stuff. And it's cool to see what everybody's doing. And Land Rovers is just the thing that brings us all together. And the newsletter really is a way for people to know what's going on without jumping on social media and being these sorts of places. It feels a little more traditional.
Let's jump into our gripe about the newsletter. We love them, they're great, but electronic newsletters are not very effective to communicate information. It comes in your email, it's 40 or 50 pages. Either you read it now or you forget about it. And for many people, once you go back to it, it never existed. Whereas when it came in your mailbox, you came with the mailbox, you put it on the kitchen counter, you moved to the living room, moved to the bathroom. Over a period of time, you read it once or twice, and the information stuck. And you had a much deeper penetration of stickiness of information. But no one wants to print anymore.
That's why I have a printer in the bathroom now, so that I can just,
It's actually a good point, because it creates history. Not that I'm bribable or not, but if you want to talk about your Freelander being at the ANARC event right now, if that was in the newsletter 50 years from now when they do the 125th, they're going to say, oh, Steve was here with his Freelander.
That's right. We could fabricate that information, and they would. Future generations would be like, well, that car couldn't have been that bad. Look at how long it lasted. It was complete.
And where else do you send the newsletter, Dixon?
Oh, it goes all over the place.
No, where do you specifically send it to?
Oh, it goes into the National Archives.
Of Canada.
Of Canada,
So there's a official record of it.
That's right. Gordon Lightfoot songs and the Ottawa Valley newsletter right there beside each other. That's fantastic. Well, and rightfully so, because I do think that there's something sort of synonymous, or at least simpatico, with Canada and the Land Rover. We do love the Land Rover. We had more of them, and I think then therefore saw more of them growing up, saw more of them working, than our friends here in the United States. And of course, because we fly under the same monarchy, it is neat. It is neat to sort of have that history and to. And, Canadian Land Rovers, some of the earliest ones came to Canada. And a lot of the foundational history of the brand was tested in Canada and was marketed with, trails in British Columbia and Ontario and things like this. And so it was, it was a part of Land Rover's DNA, and to sort of preserve that and to continue it forward is really great. To get off the topic of Land Rover just for one moment, because I think this is also an amazing piece of information about you two specifically, is not just vintage machine ownership or restoration and operation. It doesn't just stop at cars. You guys are both involved in a DC-3 airplane, right? And so did you meet through that? Did you decide to find an aircraft project to work on together? How did the Placid Lassie, which is the name of that DC-3, how did that come about?
So that's actually another Land Rover connection. So Dixon and I have known each other since like 91 or 92 through this list. And another gentleman who is actually here this weekend also drives an 80-inch, is Eric Zipkin, who his career went into aviation. And one of his customers called him up around 2010 and said, hey, I'm thinking of buying a dead DC-3 and get it running in 8 weeks and go to Oshkosh. Do you want to help out, and do you want to help learn to fly it? And of course he goes, sure. And being a wealthy person, he was able to throw a big check at it, and it worked.
Right.
And then so this person flew the airplane for a few years, went to a few events. They took over to Normandy in 2014 for the 7th anniversary. And over time, Eric was working on them and said, we should really create a foundation to fly the airplane, have more people involved. Now, when they went to Normandy in 14, a Dutch historian ran up to him and said, oh, by the way, Your airplane's plastic. They had no idea. Okay, so they can paint that. Oh, by the way, one of your crew members is still alive. Here's his email address. He was out in Palm Springs. They emailed him. He responded within hours. They FedExed him a ticket. He came out and saw the airplane for the first time since July of 45.
Wow.
Because when you came back from Europe in the war, you were put on leave because you're going to the Pacific in a few months.
Right.
And then the war ended, so all discharged from leave. So he'd never seen the airplane. He was a radio operator. So when they create a foundation, Eric calls me up and goes, hey, do you want to join the board? Yes.
Right.
Aviation. My grandfather's a pilot. I always wanted to get into it. Never got into it. And Eric took me flying in the airplane, and then I went and got my license, started working down things. And we created the foundation. I'm on the board of that as well. And we need a name. And Ed Tunison, the radio operator of the airplane, had just passed like 6 months before. So let's honor Ed in his memory. So that's why we call it that. And so we have that airplane. And Mr. Lyle, who bought the DC-3 and donated to us, also had a PBY-5 Catalina project in pieces.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which flew for Greenpeace apparently at one point in time until they realized flying this gas-guzzling airplane is not quite their mission.
Not as green as maybe it should be. Yeah, that's right.
So it did. That's one of our other long-term projects. But
cool.
The DC-3 is like a Land Rover. It's simple. It's easy. It leaks oil. Although we talk about oil stains that are like a foot in diameter.
Yeah.
When I first saw the airplane, they had a kiddie pool under each engine.
I believe we currently have a kiddie pool underneath the Freelander.
Full of oil.
It's full of a variety of things.
Yeah, that's going to come out later in the event, though, right?
That's right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're going to put it out for the kids. Yeah, we're going to put it out for the kids. Yeah, absolutely.
Swimming in gear oil?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they love it. They love it. They love it. They just love getting dirty. So no, that's very cool. And Dixon, what's your connection to that airplane?
Well, again, as Ben said, with Eric and Ben involved in it, I just got dragged into this process where I'm also on the board now. I'm not a pilot, unlike them, so I stand in the back of the airplane.
Dash 8.
Oh yeah, that's my nickname. There is Dash 8. Quickly, we did a drop of paratroops a couple weeks ago, and all these things are all very well briefed. We knew that we're going to send out 2 sticks of 7 people and all the rest of this stuff. I'm in the back of the airplane. We fly over. We drop the first stick of 7 out, and the air boss on the ground says, I see 8 good shoots. And, of course, the pilots up front who can't see backwards are like, the first thing on the radio is, oh, my God, Dixon's got out of the airplane.
And so he stayed silent.
I stayed silent. Let him think this for a while.
Well, that's fantastic. That is it's a really neat project, and there's been great photos of the airplane taken with 80 inches and all that sort of stuff. If you guys have been doing events with it and stuff, and it's a neat, it's a really neat project.
In the war, they put a Jeep into the truck if you have the right ramps.
Yeah.
Of course, an 80-inch.
Yes.
So was the Jeep was an 80-inch.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. So we
right,
haven't done it yet. We've put a mini moke inside before, but we're thinking if we get the right ramps and take the bumper off, we might be able to make that turn to get an 80-inch inside.
Just get it inside. That would be awesome. That would be super cool.
It actually nearly happened during COVID. I had gone and brought my Land Rover South to Ben's place.
That's right.
To do some repairs on it. I was going to go back the next weekend and pick it up, and they closed the border. It was stuck down there, and then it was 2020 or 2021, there was the possibility Place Lassie was going to go to an air show in Bagotville, Quebec, and they started the planning. Let's put my Land Rover in the thing to get it back into Canada.
Into the country. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we tried other things like, okay, we can't cross the border. We understand that. Can we bring the 80-inch to the border, put it in first gear, and let it roll by itself, and he can catch it? No, you can't do that.
Weren't allowed.
No, weren't allowed. No, that's too bad. That would have been a great idea. That would have totally worked. It seems fine. Yeah.
Custom does not have a sense of humor.
Spritz it with a little alcohol on the way by or something, it'd be fine. So let's talk just briefly about the cars that you guys have currently. You both have 8 inches. And what's the status of those cars? And Dixon has more than a.
How many cylinders do you have between the two cars that are functional?
Yeah, that's right.
That are functional. That's a small number.
Very good question.
Let's express that as a ratio.
I mean, being a Land Rover, putting the trailer brought up here is running fine. Day 2, go to start the next morning, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm due down here. The Chinese knockoff ignition switch had decided to screw the pooch, so I just pulled the dash, spliced in some wires, dropped them below down, so every time I start I have to twist 2 wires together and hit the starter button.
Yep. That's that's
a lot of Land Rovers. That's a significant portion of the total production of vehicles, how they start. And it didn't get any better. Like I had a nasty 90, and I can remember I was supposed to catch a ferry from Victoria to Anacortes, Washington, and I pulled up to the ferry, and I was waiting for the ferry in the line, and as soon as they lifted the gate, I went to start the Defender, and the ignition switch was bad, and I had to do exactly what you did. And that was, 30 years removed from your car, or 35 or whatever. And so they never improved that. The ignition switches.
There's actually a similar story at, what was it, the Moose Trophy.
I was just thinking of that.
A Land Rover event in Nova Scotia. And on the way back, Bruce Fowler has an 86-inch.
Yeah, 88 actually.
88. They're towing it behind a Toyota Land Cruiser.
Uh-huh.
And they're trying to make the ferry, and the Land Cruiser dies.
Oh, no.
Runs out of fuel.
Oh, no.
They don't know how to reprime the pump.
Right.
And the ferry's sailing.
So
That's what happened to me, and I had to wait 8 hours till the next ferry.
Oh.
So Bruce decides, let's try and get the thing to the next gas station, which they know is just up ahead.
Yeah.
Bruce gets in the 80-inch, or sorry, the 88, the Series 1, and they're going uphill. He gets the thing into gear and going, and then he shifts and gets going faster. And in the end, he drove the thing. The Series 1 pushed this Land Cruiser faster and more efficiently than the Land Cruiser was towing the Series 1. And they got to the dock as the ferry's ready to go, and they just quietly just pushed the thing up on the ferry, and the deckhands are just shaking their heads.
Well, there you go. There you go. I'd rather be pushing a Land Rover than driving a Toyota.
Series 1s are where it's
That's
at.
right, exactly.
You can always get those things going.
Yeah. Well, there's so few moving pieces that now not all those pieces are always moving willingly, but there's so few of them that you can usually motivate enough of them to let you get going.
So another thing that Ben and I are doing is we and another chap, Keith Barrett from the Series 1 Club, we created NASOR, the North American Series 1 Register, and we're trying to collect the various VIN numbers, serial numbers of these things to figure out how many have survived.
Right.
Of 80 inches, 1349 were actually imported to it. And we know now that 20.3% of these things still exist in some form.
Wow.
A bunch of them running.
Wow.
And so we're trying to collect, anyone that has a Series 1, send us the VIN. We don't need to know where it is.
Right.
We don't need to know your name.
Right.
But does this thing exist, either as a pile of parts in your backyard or something that you're driving around?
Yeah.
Because how many are around?
That's right.
And that was started with Land Rover's claim that, X percent, 80% of these things or whatever are still on the road and driving. It's like, well, I don't think so. But what
how
is
many
the
of that
number?
under their own power, though? They're on the road or driving, and not necessarily both at the same time. But we were just chatting with Linus a couple of days ago about every so often you'll see a Facebook post of somebody saying, oh, look at this crazy car I found abandoned, and this one happens to be somewhere in northern British Columbia. We found this 107 wagon. They don't really even know. They're just like, it looks like a Land Rover. I Google image searched, and it said Land Rover, and they pop up all the time. You would think that by now every vintage Land Rover that was put away has been found, but not the case at all, right? People are finding them all the time. And so it's really interesting that you guys are sort of keeping track of that, sort of keeping score to see where these cars are and when they come up, what's going on with them.
Another 107 wagon appeared just a couple days ago, and I got a photo of the thing. It's sitting in the dealership in Ottawa. And it's been sitting in near the downtown of the city for the past 30, 40 years, and no one knew.
And nobody knew. Nobody knew. Oh, that's interesting. Now that I think of that, my good friend Bo Bachman has a lights behind the grill car that he has in the dealership that I just happened by a couple months ago, and he said, "Oh yeah, I got it at something somewhere, some auction or something of like a whole lot of different cars." And he's like, "I just bought all the Land Rovers they had because we just opened a dealership, and so we've got all these Land Rovers there. So I'll have to go crawl under it and see what the VIN number is."
Yeah. In the United States. In Canada, the dealerships are not allowed to put anything except current product on their display floor. We couldn't get Oxford into the dealership.
That's unfortunate.
Without permission from corporate.
Right. I have a feeling that Bo is the type of individual who just wouldn't ask. He would
beg forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. He may be in trouble now because I said that, but that's all right. He'll be okay. But yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's interesting, hey, that there is this sort of love-hate relationship, it seems, with the classic vehicles. Of course, Land Rover has the classic works in the UK, and they're doing some really neat stuff there. And
fantastic stuff.
And at the same time, they do seem a little shy to do too much in contemporary marketing, but they are here. They do have
I was just about to say that they're here, they have a presence, and I think that is an interesting transition that I was talking about with a number of other owners, is that Land Rover used to put on events, invite people out, and there's less of that. There's less community, that their presence at events has diminished, and I think this is an exception to that. They did Destination Defender. There was a lot of older cars there. They did this event. I think that's changing here in North America, but in the rest of the world, Land Rover is kind of distancing themselves. They're doing the exclusivity, the modern luxury. In
some ways, they're moving away from the brand Land Rover to talk about the verticals, the Range Rovers, the Defenders, the Discoveries, and Land Rover's fading in the background.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It seems like that's the case, but it's confusing if you're a consumer, because they're not totally getting rid of the Land Rover name. It's just what is it? Is it a JLR Range Rover? Is it a Range Rover Range Rover? Is it and what does JLR stand for?
It's a JLR.
Yeah,
it stands for
JLR stands for JLR.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
But it is confusing, and I think you're like, is it still a Land Rover? Did they get bought by somebody else? As a consumer, you're not exactly sure what's driving this, and Land Rover has always been a Range Rover, has always been a Land Rover product. So is it no longer a Land Rover product?
And also remember back in the 90s when they had the Defender 90s and the Discoveries and Range Rovers, many people came into dealerships like, oh, a Defender's a great vehicle. And they rode one like, oh, I want a Discovery.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And so the two are symbiotic,
yeah,
because people like different directions.
They like a range, and I think that is one thing that where does the Discovery fit into this now?
Right.
The new Defender is every bit as good as the Discovery, both in terms of on-road and off-road capability. Yeah. So, really it's just a question of which one do you like the look of better.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it used to be that, Discovery was that much bigger than Defender, but with the Defender 130 now, it's actually a little bit bigger than the Discovery. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see, because the Defender has gone so far up market.
I feel like there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah. I think they need to bring back an 80-inch.
They've been talking about that.
I know they keep talking about it. An even smaller new Defender. I would buy one. That'd be super cool.
Well, you could say at the same time, when Land Rover abandoned North America in '74, the net result was the Rover Owners of Richmond started, the Association of Land Rover Owners of Canada started.
That's right.
Turned into OVLR, and Richmond turned into Rove. And it created a strong independent club structure for people on how do you keep this thing going.
That's right. Well, and Mark Laterney and the gang at Rovers North,
And Atlantic Bridge was actually around a few years before Rovers North. Both of them started in different places. And actually, when Rover abandoned the market, Mark Laterney and Rovers North got the franchise for the East Coast. But a company called British Pacific in the West Coast had the other one.
Yes.
Atlantic Bridge has since bought them, but there was there was some setup to use.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I I was a long-standing British Pacific customer, especially in Canmore, Alberta. They're a lot closer to me than it was to get stuff.
I was in Pasadena, so I could actually drive over and walk into their shop and
fantastic.
Just kind of peruse the shelves.
Yeah,
I can remember going there in high school and buying some toe rings or something, But that was a great resource, and the Southern California Land Rover scene has really gravitated, in a different direction. And there's still, I think Huntington Mobile is still there. I get calls from that guy periodically.
Which they were the original shop with British Pacific, and when they moved location, they split.
Yeah, no, they're still there, still working on cars. There's still British Car Service, Steve there at British Car Service. There's still a few, Small
story of Huntington. So right after they split, they're in California and they wanted to start doing smog stuff, and so they called Land Rover and said, so I'd like to buy their test book so I can do smog checks.
Right.
And Land Rover said, no, you can't. We only sell those dealerships. And no, I need to buy. No, fine. They called CARB and said, so we want to buy this book. They will not sell this to us. I said, hold on, Huntington Garage.
Yeah.
They called Land Rovers and said, sell this book. And they said, no, we won't. They said, you will stop selling cars in California tomorrow. Independent dealerships must do smog checks,
Right.
period, or you can't sell in the state. And they call Huntington, when do you want it shipped and where?
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't ever run foul of CARB.
No.
Those guys are those guys mean business. They don't
They're
they don't miss
cutthroat.
it. Yeah, they are. They're a rough bunch of people there at the old
And so my
CARB.
Series 3, when I bought it, well, my dad bought it, it had been in Florida. It had another layer of 1/8-inch steel welded around the entire frame. And someone had cut out the spring pitcher to put Suburban springs in the rear.
Oh my goodness.
And that had broken. So I go bring it in and say, how do we fix this? They go, well, to Huntington Garage, we had to cut out the spring pitcher and weld a new one in for you. I'm like, okay, wrote a check. I've used that garage.
Yeah, the dealer usually won't do that for you.
Do you remember the guy that used to own British Pacific?
Steve Hedke or the one before?
One before, Hugh.
Hugh, I knew of him. Randy Rose was also involved with that.
Randy Rose,
Who
was
drives the
involved in
107 station wagon.
that? He does. And Rebecca.
Yes, yes.
At any rate, you know, they had a guy working in their shop, Andre. Do you remember Andre?
Vaguely.
He was like a punk drummer that used to rebuild all their transmissions. And he was like, if it's 6 o'clock, he's in the morning, he's drunk by that time.
Yeah, for sure.
And he just like a chain smoker. And
Yep.
I bought a Land Rover from him, and the entire floor of the vehicle was cigarette butts. You couldn't even see that it had link mats in it, and the back of the car was like just full of beer cans, like up to the cappings. And I went in his shop, and he had just one corner that was like probably 10 bushels of beer cans in the corner. He was a crazy guy. But he interestingly worked on a lot of famous people's Land Rovers. So like Robin Williams had a series truck, and like all these people, like actors and producers and the interesting people in the LA area. And he would just have all these crazy stories of like him working on somebody's Land Rover at their house because they didn't want to take it into a shop. He'd go over and fix it, and then like all of a sudden a party would happen, and all these famous people would be there, and they would just be like, yeah, stay. And he would just get, and by the time I saw him, he was just totally burnt out. He just had too many good times, that guy.
Yeah.
And he would just drive around in that series truck with no registration because he'd lost his license, with a giant St. Bernard in it. And the St. Bernard would sit in it like a person with its arm leaning out the window.
It's nice to know that even a St. Bernard can't comfortably sit in a series Land Rover without putting an arm out the window. Yeah, that's good to know. That's a top-hitting, winning British design.
We're going to have to put I have a picture of Andre and his dog riding around in his series truck.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, hey, it has been an absolute pleasure. I consider you guys not just guests of the show, but contributors. Obviously, we talk about Dixon all the time because of his love of the Freelander and interest in our Freelander project. So
it is the king of Land Rovers,
is
the mightiest of them all.
That is exactly right. And Ben, I hope you'll come back and
Happy to.
spend time. And I hope maybe one of these days we'll do a show live inside of Placid Lassie. Probably not while it's flying because I don't think anybody can hear anything. But at least at some point in the future. And thanks again for everything that you've done to make the community so strong in both of our countries, and to keep the dream of Land Rover, vintage Land Rover ownership alive, at least in our hearts, if maybe not physically all the time.
Oh, it's absolutely true. I really appreciate your guys' effort, from the Mendo list to the FAQ to all these different things that you're involved in and helping out at these events and stuff. It's great to see you guys, and I really appreciate the efforts that you put into that stuff.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Thank you
coming.
very much.
All right.
See you on the trail.
Those guys are awesome. They are the most Land Rovery of Land Rover people.
Super nerds.
Now, what I don't know is, do you think Dixon's realized that we put those Freelander floor mats into his 80-inch before he left the festival?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it, but I have a feeling when I come into my house and I haven't turned on the light yet, I fully expect those Freelander floor mats to be behind my door.
Or he's really enjoying them. You know what? This is what this car was missing this whole time. Could be. Or they're somewhere flung out on the freeway between Greek Peak and somewhere in Ontario.
We'll hope not.
Yeah, maybe not. We'll see. Anyways. And with that, we have one final One final thing, a Land Rovers in the movies, everybody's 9th favorite segment. This one, a brand new, I guess, installment from the Marvel Cinematic or Television Universe on Disney Plus, the Secret Invasion with none other than celebrity Land Rover owner Samuel L. Jackson. And this time there is a plethora of Land Rovers. And there must be somebody who makes these Marvel shows. Somebody's got something.
There's a tie because we had previously discussed the show Moon Knight, which has several classic Defenders featured in it, and maybe some Range Rovers. The baddies always seem to drive Range Rovers. But in this new show called Secret Invasion, aliens are trying to take over the world. And there is only one gentleman who can stand in their way, Samuel L. Jackson, otherwise known as Nick Fury. My understanding is his agency drives a Defender, apparently. Secret government agency uses a Defender in the film. And he also, at a later point in the program, he drives a Discovery. Is that right?
A Discovery. And the funny thing is he arrives at a secret location where he has this Discovery stored. It's under a tarp, and he takes the tarp off of it and gets in, and it starts, which I think is the most improbable of the entire series. The aliens invading and turning into humans and all this sort of stuff. I could see that, but
seems plausible.
Having an old Discovery stored somewhere for enough time that you'd put a tarp on it and to get into it and think that it would start, completely improbable. That's never happened.
That's the least realistic part of the entire show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's never happened. Nobody's ever
shifting aliens. Fine. A Discovery that's sat for a couple years and starts. No, I can't.
No, I refuse. The
suspension of disbelief cannot continue.
No, that's just a bridge too far. It's not possible.
I think it is interesting because this is far from the first Marvel show or Disney program that has Land Rovers in it. There was the Eternals, I think, had some Land Rover.
They had a nice nice NATO style classic Defenders. They had some new Range Rovers, I think, in that show as well.
The Moon Knight show also had some of those. One of the installments of Thor, I think. They drive to Scandinavia to pick up Thor, and Hulk is riding in the back of the Defender pickup, I believe. So there's got to be a tie in there somewhere. I don't know where it is, but we should find out. We should find out.
Maybe it's Kevin Feige or someone high up. You got to get some.
It's got to be.
You got to get some Land Rovers in there. It's got to be because it's too ubiquitous to be a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. Yeah,
it's not a coincidence. No, exactly. On that bombshell, I think that's it for this week. Later. Yeah, exactly. We'll get Jenna and the research team deep into that to figure out the tie there and see what can be found.
Be sure to like and comment on some of our social media, YouTube videos and Instagram stories and the old Facebook community. We will be drawing a comment at random from the list of comments, and you can win a all expenses paid trip in Stevens TDCI Defender.
Yeah, wherever you want to go. If you can find it.
You want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good time. But do subscribe. Check out that stuff on Facebook. Like I said, we are working on a YouTube series around this trip here to the UK, featuring some of the fantastic Land Rover people that we have spent time with and in their fantastic Land Rover places. Basically, we've gone from the north to the south. There's a little bit farther north and there's a little bit farther south, but basically, we've gone north to south and we've basically gone east to west across Scotland as well.
If your biggest objection to listening to the show is me, look forward to a lot of me-free content.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Exactly. It's going to be great.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff coming up on both the podcast and on the YouTube. So check it out. And until then, Ike, happy trails. Good luck on your journey. And unfortunately, we have run out of time for this week's review of Nando's, but we might just hit one before we head back to the States. So we'll see what we can do. Right. I'll bring you back another sandwich to
Man, I'm looking forward to it. Bring me some of that sauce, please.
Yeah, we'll get you some piri-piri and put it in a Tupperware container, and I'll see you in the next, 4 to 6 weeks. So
love it.
It'll be set. It'll be good to go.
All right. See you soon.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Barris, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Barris. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.